Welcome back to the ITAM kitchen, the place where we have all the chat and we talk about IT stuff, specific IT asset management. Bill Talbot here, 30-year practitioner, having a lot of fun in talking about how we can help you become that better practitioner we have out there. Look at it, see what I get on the screen. Sometimes you never know what this smart screen is going to do. And that's what we do in life, right? Sometimes we don't know what to walk into, and that's what we're talking about right now. The inherited problems we have when we gain a new role and we try to figure out what's happening inside an environment. And this week's been about a hospital environment, right? Hospital environment, trying to do a technology refresh, right? Trying to go that next step, or not just technology refresh, actually moving, right?
Cloud repatriation.
No, this is the cloud repatriation. See, I totally messed it up. Sometimes you do. It's been a busy week. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. We can actually add all the rest into it, having more fun. That's a whole different scenario. Wow, that's a hospital environment. I couldn't imagine what we'd be dealing with there.
Yeah.
That's a whole different scenario. But the cloud repatriation, this is actually where we have a 95% type environment. We've gone to cloud, we realized too much. We're going to approach a lot about on-prem. And we've talked the last couple of days, if you haven't been part of that, what some of the challenges are. But before we get all the details, Rob, why don't you introduce yourself? Because without Rob, we don't have much of a conversation. You just hear it from me. So go for it, Rob.
Yeah, I'm Rob Collins. I'm a 30-year plus practitioner of IT asset management, operations, and various other IT-related fields, going all the way back to the late 80s and 90s when I was a United States Marine for 4 years, and then coming through 26 years of government practice within the state of Florida government agencies, and then 5 years of practice as an IT consultant. So there we go. That's me, more or less, in a very short intro.
Sometimes that's the best. That's how you said you're a Marine, right? You were a Marine? Yeah,
yes.
Appreciate your service. Absolutely. But what you also learn as Marines is you have to be effective. You have to be concise to help execute, right? And it's like, that's the whole idea of what we're talking about is how can we be concise, get the point across so we're able to move forward. Because on Monday, we talked about the triage and truth, right? Trying to look at the environment, see what's happening there. We talked about some of the pieces. We'll leverage the whiteboard. We're leveraging the entire week for this, right? And to say, okay, what's going on here? And what we found out of all the dialogue we're having from is, I know the desires say, okay, we're going to go to, say, 75% on-prem versus 25%. But we said, is it possible? Can we do it? How's the licensing change? What's the other factors? What's the role of the business? Can we, from a business perspective, actually make that happen? I know there's a desire because that's the way it used to work. But sometimes the way it used to work, and you move away from it, you can't go back, right? And I'm really summarizing a lot, but we talked about all the different areas, the procurement, the governance. We talked about some of the metrics we're going to start looking at. And from here, said, okay, we have to start tracking it because this environment wasn't tracking any of that, right?
That's right.
And from there, we determined also from the stabilization, start going down that path and moving straight around. It's amazing when you have a big screen. I don't know why this thing doing this. Okay. There we go. Okay, got my full screen back. Is going to start looking at environments, see who, and the goal is to be in the room when we start having these business discussions. Because that's important. A lot of folks think about with asset management, software asset management, even configuration management, we're just sideline entertainers, right? We're out there performing a task. We're just ancillary, but we're really not needed for the business discussion. What we're learning with this is we're actually critical to the business discussion, right?
Yeah.
It's important for us to be objective and be at that table. And think about how we're putting that, because that sponsorship and support has to be throughout the entire duration. In the sponsorship and support might have also been the people saying, we're going to move this environment. You might have to come back and say, I'm going to raise my hand for a second. You're not going to like this answer. We can't.
Yeah, and then here's why.
Yeah, and you're providing all the whys. It's like, I want to help. I really do. And I'm here to help, and we'll figure this out. But where you want to go, we have to collectively figure out another option. Because this going back is no longer an option. And that's important. And that's the discussion we just openly have. Because keep in mind, Rob and I are working from scenarios we actually made up but we've not done these specific scenarios. We're just using our experience saying, how are we going to triage? How are we going to move forward, right?
But this isn't to say we haven't encountered these situations before, because we have.
Exactly. Yeah. Just not exactly in this spin, but we're having fun with it because it's helping our gears are getting in gear too. You're seeing us have a lot of fun, right? Be able to share that. Because we start talking about resources, a lot of alignment, whether you're talking about the resources, the data, the process, you talk about technology, how you start tracking that in place, talking about stabilization. We also talk about what's possible, what's not. We were just talking that a little bit. And reporting that good, bad, and the ugly. Because this is also about being honest, right? And that's a key point as we go through this. Because all of a sudden you're starting to look at the accuracy and determine, okay, what assumptions are being tied into that, and making sure you have that documented throughout the time, throughout the path. Otherwise, you haven't really changed your approach and the culture of what you've been doing the entire time, because you've been winging it. With this customer, they went to cloud because a lot of people winged it when they went to cloud. They was like, bring up the new instance, make it happen. We need to make it virtual because that's what needs to happen, because we're not going to put people in data centers anymore. We can't do it because of COVID or whatever the reason was. Use our other reasons on top of that. There were more than just that. And it's like, okay, let's start doing it. So we also said, okay, for stabilization, we need to understand what we have and why the pain, and categorize where some of the pain is, because we know the cost is actually driving this whole discussion. So let's dig into this a little bit and make sure we have these two kind of aligned to help determine our next steps. When we're talking about the 30, 60, 90-day plan, right? Then we started saying, okay, what kind of options do we need to start looking at? We went in a lot of detail, team. If you don't think it's a masterclass, I don't know where you've been. I'll be really honest. It was honestly a masterclass to look at this. Rob, go ahead.
Speaking of which, I think that if you haven't seen the last couple of streams that we did on this particular topic, I'd recommend you go back and do that. There are two things that come to mind, right? One of those things is that the whole reason why this, for instance, is being brought to light and this project stood up is because finance found a huge charge in cloud spend. And that huge charge in cloud spend was particularly triggered because a workflow failed to operate and a virtual device was left on. A cloud instance was left running. And that run, which was unexpected, right, is what generated the spike in the cost and got the business end and the finance people triggered to come in and find out what happened. And then the second thing I'm thinking about when it comes to moving cloud instance, I did have some experience with that in support of a state of Florida law enforcement agency. And this is one of those where they didn't necessarily make the decision to move everything to the cloud because there are certain literally life and death processes and decisions and support and services that needed to be maintained, and they needed to be maintained in a high security environment. So some of this stuff did not go to cloud. So planning in that instance had an impact. In this particular scenario, the drive to move to cloud for the projected and the advertised savings is what caused the move. And then it was the overcharge that came back through finance that triggered this exercise.
So with all that being said, done, there's a lot of knowledge to be learned if you're going to look at it and be able to say, how can I better perform my job? Because here's the problem. Here's one of the reasons why we're doing the ITAM kitchen. So let me back up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
We're doing this because the shared information as far as how we work and collaborate amongst each other has not been happening, right? Been doing it haphazardly. And the whole purpose behind the ITAM kitchen is to be able to say, okay, how can we do this better? Right? How can we help better communicate and do that outreach and start the collaboration? Because honestly, it started the co-op back in 2020, right? Just before the pandemic. Ironically, the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
It was just that thing. But provide an environment where it's safe to talk about, so you don't have the LinkedIn clutter, right? And that's the whole idea. What we're talking about here is you're talking about right here on screen. You're talking about 60 years of experience and working through different scenarios. And have we seen it all? We haven't. You may have a different experience and we haven't, but we embrace that because that's where the fun is, right? Is being able to look at that, because what's also happened is everyone's gone to a checkbox certification, let's call it that. Very little reality. You've got a certificate of completion for a task, or you completing that certification exam, but you have not certification of experience.
That's right.
Right? And that's what we're finding is hurting us as a whole. And why is that? Because individuals that meet that qualification, the certificate of completion versus certificate of experience, they're getting fired. Executives are getting upset. Industry doesn't know who to trust. You don't know where to go. The vendors are frustrated because it's not usually a product issue. And it's like, okay, where do we go next? And the industry leads, honestly, they're not helping drive the next steps. Hence, we stepped up and said, you know what, we're going to give it a shot and move forward. Hence why we're talking, right? And there's lots of people out there, maybe you don't get along with us. That's great. I want you to be around the tribe and folks that you want to, but I want you to be right here and listen to us and say, you know what, because what sometimes is common sense is not common practice.
That's right.
And we're talking about common sense type of things here, but it's not common practice. Mm-hmm. Now, why is that after 30 years? I can't explain it. Maybe you can. Why do you not do it? Right? It's not to be demeaning to anything. It's more about how do we move forward. But that's the whole purpose why we're doing the ITAM kitchen, why the co-op exists, things like that. If you want to learn about the co-op, just go to joinitmc.com, take a look at what happens there, because we have a blast even talking multiple things every day and how we move forward, right? Okay, cool. So being able to help drive our next step, right, is figure out, okay, how do we put ourselves with a 30, 60, 90-day plan for today? That's what today's about. Because we've talked about a lot, we quickly recapped what we've done the last couple of days. And again, you got 120 minutes of content for the last two sessions as far as the triage and truth, the stabilization, and this has really been looking about the 30, 60, 90-day execution, the planning and execution, how we're going to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Because now we have to think about, okay, we put all this in place, have some great stuff on the screen, but how do we make it all work? So let me add to a different part of the screen. I love it when I have a big screen, you just move around.
I think at the last time that we discussed this, we went as far as determining the KPIs that we want to have in place. And so now it's the how to do that and then to prioritize those and set those up for those 30, 60, 90 days.
Yep. So change a whole different screen here, ready for us.
Okay.
30, 60. I love my smartboard. I'll just put it that way. Because when we think about this allows us to think about what we do collectively. Now, if anyone's online, please state where you're from. State possibly a problem you have, because it's important to have your input and feedback as well. And if you're seeing this after the fact, put comments put it in the comments below, because we're also paying attention to that. Mm-hmm. But to keep us on target, because we're live. We're not. There's nothing scripted about this. There's nothing scripted about it. We were saying, okay, how do we move forward? The only thing that's scripted is we've predefined a use case with some scenarios about it. Outside of that, we're having a dialogue as if it's just a normal day of operation. So what comes to mind, Rob, on the 30, 60, 90-day execution that we want to make sure we have within our planning?
Okay. One of the first things that comes to mind, right, is discovery, if you will, if you haven't done it already, around an inventory of the sites themselves. That's what I'm talking about. It's anything that you've pushed up to cloud, right, that now you might want to consider bringing back down. So let's talk about scope determination within the first 30 days in order to figure out what to actually touch, what to actually work on. And then
the discovery, because that's also going to be the baseline, right?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to determine baseline, what we're going to do throughout the other periods. 30, 60, 90, and beyond, of course, because this isn't something that you could just do in a matter of a couple of weeks, right? And then the other thing, too, is to address the immediate problem around the process, right, that was not switched off and why it was not switched off that triggered this entire thing. And to take that, right, over the course maybe of the 60 or the 90 days and apply that same methodology and analysis across the other processes that you have in place. You know, normally when you're examining a system and you're working through incident and problem management and trying to put these kinds of things together to prevent trouble in the future or reduce the number of incidents and take away or mitigate problems, then that's another thing to look at too. The thing that's going to help us in this particular situation, you will probably find are going to be helpful in other situations as well. It may drive further improvement across other areas of the IT business and the IT support.
Well, it brings up a good point. You brought that to the point, because to your point, absolutely we need to figure out that baseline, but it's also, we have the baseline, we talk about discovery.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking that, and we talked about this a little bit more in depth on Wednesday when we had our day 2, right? I think we also need to look at change management.
Yeah, you do.
The change management process, right? And drive that, right?
And I was a change manager for like 5 years back at the, in fact, it was at the agency at the state of Florida where I was supporting law enforcement. So a lot of great experience there. Every line on your resume has 1,000 stories behind it. Never forget that.
That's true. At least 1,000.
Good, bad, and ugly.
At least, yeah, exactly. So I think from doing that part, but we also talked about at the same time, we talked about the first 30 days, right? Is we also need to look and say, okay, what are we looking at? And we've done a little bit of this investigation already because of the stabilization, as well as, okay, what are we doing the triage is the financials, right? We need to further articulate and manage those, right?
Yeah, because you know, that brings something else to mind. If maybe this will happen within the 60-day period, but if you drill down into the finance silo, like if it was me and this is my problem to solve, right? I'd want finance in the room, and I'd want them to tell me, hey, what other metrics can you guys provide that you measure on a frequent basis, let's say every 30 days, for instance? Because we also talked about some SaaS containment related issues that could be here as well. I'd want them in the room to tell me, what's your data set? What reports do you get? If we can together examine what it is that you're relying upon, maybe we could find some of that as useful too, and maybe not just you and me, maybe other stakeholders. So you could determine who those are, and I think that stakeholder establishment was another one of those things in the first 30 days. And then from there, we may be able to do this work to inform others. And then, of course, you know, as an outcome for all of this, there are going to be other troubles or other problems or other things that could be the basis of improvements that would be revealed throughout this project. And if they do, there's no reason why not to think about standing some of those up in other areas.
And one of those would be the policy refinement, right?
Yes. Yeah, policy refinement. If you find that the incident was because of a lack of policy or a fallacy in policy, that's one of those things to take to a policy review team. And hopefully you're doing that at least once a year, by the way.
If not every 6 months. I'm a quarterly 6 months guy myself.
That's cool.
Some of that.
I mean, I'm a real
especially
guy.
Well, exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, you
Yeah,
can do it every month. You're going to overwhelm people, right?
Right.
But I'm more about the policy refinement, because what's going to help identify if a policy needs to be changed are the metrics you're capturing. And we talked about those metrics, right? And the reporting. And that's, again, how are you looking at this? We're trying to do a remediation, because we're also going to refine what we have to be prepared for whenever we put on the rest of this board. We have to be prepared for up here. The rest of this may change.
Sure could.
Right? Because remember, on Monday and Wednesday, we talked about we may have to change the whole scope of this whole effort, because we find out back to 25% in cloud only may not be possible, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, we have to look at we have to reevaluate the applications, how we're looking at this. Because this is a business discussion, and we have to make sure we're aligned with the business. It's not just about what's in our head, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Another reminder point for me, for instance, and I know that we've said this in the last few sessions, but you know, I will repeat it in other sessions, and that is the exercise of alignment between business objectives, IT support for those objectives, and IT asset management support for the IT objectives. They go hand in hand. And then, of course, you can also add to that, like FinOps discussions and SaaS discussions, et cetera. But sort of like it starts there.
That goes back to your stakeholder establishment and having those discussions. I'll just bring up that.
Sure it is.
Part. But what this is also going to provide you is saying, okay, what those next steps are. It's not saying, well, you're not going to fill out the rest of this form here, right? We got the 60 and the 90. We'll absolutely do that. But by understanding some of these foundations, we'll say, okay, now it's not about you making the decisions as far as asset manager or software asset manager. It's about saying, okay, this is what I found, right? Because this is where you're helping serve others, and you're also going to gain credibility. And that's the important part about this: is you're going to be in the room. Sometimes you're not allowed to be in the room, right? This time you're going to be in the room. They're going to say, okay, how does it affect? What's the what if scenario? Right. How's this going to affect the outcome? How can we look at this? And you're going to have other team members in there too. Because it's like, oh, well, but keep that in mind when we talk about stakeholders. Let's drill in that a little bit. We've talked about finance. We've talked about IT. We've talked about the CIO. We've talked about CTO. We've talked about possibly other leadership team members being in there. But also you have a lot of operational team members who be part of this as well.
That's right.
And when you start doing this, if you want to be able to shine, I'll just use the word shine. Maybe it's like, well, I'm an introvert. I don't want to be out. I'm not an outgoing person. I don't like to talk to people. Well, I'll give you insight. You need to talk.
Yeah. There's a good pointer I can give you about that, right? If you have any reluctance to speak up, consider that what you have to say is more important than your shyness.
Yep. That's very critical. That point, because this is a business. This is a little business do or die. You have a business that's bleeding, not bleating, but bleeding. BLEDID, right? That from mismanagement, misunderstanding, not having the right clarity, and this is the ability to say, you know what, we made a mistake. That's great. That always our lessons learned. How can we further grow from this? And that's how we have to look at this, because tensions are going to be high. That's another part. I'll bring it in this part. Tensions are going to be crazily high, and you have to be the rock at this point. I'm just going to refine that, because me of all people, it's like I'm not a rock. I'm just a person in the backyard, not in the backyard, in the back room, just processing data. Yes, but you're helping keep everyone else sane, calm. You're saying, what's the rationality behind this? Because this also is your opportunity to grow. I'm just going to put it out there, right? It's
Steadfast, change course, move on.
Because I'll give you insight from an asset management perspective. Of all the asset managers I know out here in the world, maybe 5% of the people out there get this opportunity to make a difference.
Yeah.
5%. And I'm not making that number up. I'm totally telling the truth, right? Just being around it. To make a business impact like this, being part of a team, being able to further promote that, this is your opportunity to shine. Because if you shine on this, your promotions can go multiple different directions. You might say, well, I don't want to get out of asset management. That's great. But your ability is not just asset management. You're looking at how to deal with teams. Right?
Yeah. This also helps the profession. If you speak value, if you can demonstrate value, they'll make a seat for you at the table, right? The more ITAM folks get those seats at the table, the more our industry rises. A rising tide lifts all boats. Here's your opportunity as an individual to contribute to that. Yeah.
And keep that in mind, because as you're moving forward, a lot of people struggle with this. Because again, you got the certification, you got, whether it's technology certification, whether you got industry certification, doesn't matter. But you say, well, I wasn't made for this. I was put in this role. I was told to take this class. Great. How are you going to embrace it? How are you going to take advantage of the opportunity at hand? That's what we're talking about, right? And I say that enthusiastically, because did I know what I was going to be doing 30 years later and going live and talking to you like right now? No. Do I regret it? No. Was I nervous as all get out when I did my first live presentation at a conference in 1999? Yes, I know. And speaking in front of peers and having a presentation and realizing I was going to have the time of my life and have a whole new adventure when I did that? No.
Yes.
That's my point, right? This is your opportunity to shine and grow. And do you know what the outcome is going to be? You don't. But that's the opportunity. When you realize that brings excitement to you, that's the fun. So just a little nugget on that, because I want to make sure that you are the person in the room. Because when you're the person in a room like this, you're just gonna say, and you may screw up along the way, admit it. You have that good bad, it's like, whoop, go for it.
What's the adage? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Correct. And if you don't speak up, the answer is always gonna be no. Right?
I'll never know.
Exactly. So on that, from our little rant, but it was an important rant. Let me just say, make sure you put that out there. That's extremely important, right? Let's talk about how we can look at, okay, we've got the 30 days. It's just say we're making headway. We're going to have the KPIs starting to come out. We have some reporting. We're making it happen. Everyone's feverishly put into, because we have a 10,000 person company we're working with here, right? That's right. This is a manufacturing company. I had to remember what it was. And keep in mind, our IT team might be limited. Our overall staff team, we might have have 14. We're in 14 different countries, right? I don't know what we're manufacturing. I didn't have that here in the use case, but in the case study, but that's okay.
Yeah,
but
we did talk about that.
Yeah, but keep in mind, your staffing may be maybe 5% of the company, right? If that. So with this, you might have 5 people. Actually, you probably have at least 10 people, if not 20 people involved. Maybe up to 50. Just depends on how involved it is. I would say you're probably 50 on this one, just because of the type of environment it is. But that's not a bad thing, because everyone has different roles and how they're looking at it. And different. You might have. I know one time I worked on a project as a CMDB owner. I had 5 different CIOs I reported to. 5. And keep in mind, this was a 3,000 person company. But it was all about financials. They were very critical about that and how they look at the data and different groups, et cetera. And everyone was in different tiers and business units, but that's how it worked. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about that, is because, again, you're going to have a lot here. Let's talk about how we're going to move forward. That's next step.
Yeah.
Yes, Rob, you're going to say something?
I was going to say, right now we've got a pretty good start with the 30-day sets of activities. Now what we want to do is we want to extend, because the 30 days are really about kind of setting up some discovery, forming the teams, and getting some of the initial intelligence pulled in so that we can then begin working on the 60 and the 90-day activities. So next up, let's see what we can do about extending over to the 60-day activities. Once we've done the discovery, for instance, I'd look at dashboarding and reporting within 60 days to start driving the activity for the various silos and teams to move forward. And we'll extend that over into the 90 days here shortly after we discuss some of those other items.
Well, and let's add upon this, the dashboard and reporting, right? So it's a great little, one thing comes to me, there's one word that comes to mind for me right here when we do this. It's called governance, right? Mm-hmm. So that's when you're driving the governance. That's really where you're driving it.
Especially if something comes from that 30-day analysis of any policies that maybe we didn't fall short or that we didn't have, because now we do want a policy committee set up so that we can then repair damaged policies, if you will, or review and revise, and then take those things that we found that didn't have policies applied and apply policy. And one of those might be a process review that would have identified the process that was left on for a while.
And keep in mind, the policy, it may be departmental, it might be organizational, right?
Sure.
And this is also where you're going to have your organizational change management involved. Right?
Yes. Support change and IT change management will definitely be involved at that point.
Yeah, you have to involve these team members in there, because they're going to help you provide that additional structure. And you're going to need that overhead, because they may say, well, we can't afford to bring more people on the team. It's like, you cannot afford not to. How do we get in the situation where we are, right? Yeah.
Well, you put, I don't know, 150,000 for staff, and you never have that problem again. I mean, that's already, you're looking at a massive cost savings for something like that.
Exactly. So you're doing some of the dashboard reporting, you're moving it forward, but this is also where you're looking at, I'll say initiative alignment. Because when you start understanding some of the things here, right, you understand what you have the financials, you understand some of the policies and how we kind of got our scenario. Again, you don't want to relive the past, you try to move forward, right? So, but you understand history. You also say, okay, this is what we can actually do. So, go ahead.
I was going to say maybe we should have started this within the 30 days. Maybe it extends, right? But there's applicable automation and applicable AI, right, that could be leveraged in this case as well. If you do that, if you have an AI system already in place, and if it's restricted to within your environment, so nothing goes outside.
Project phases back here. Let me cut project phases.
Oh yeah, that was another thing too. One of the biggest points that I have is as soon as you have an effort like this to stand up, get a project manager assigned. Get one assigned to help to sort of like at least lay out the track for the rest of the activities. Sets expectations, sets up reporting.
Absolutely, and that's a good point. It's your resource, right? Some different, and you may need a program manager versus a project manager for this. That's okay too.
Sure.
Depending upon how big it is. And I'll let your organization deal with that. You guys can have that discussion internally. OCM might get pulled over as well in 30 days. I have no problem with being 60 days because I say in the 30 days, you're still trying to figure out what's you're trying to get your feet on the ground, right?
Right.
And that standpoint, you might include some of your OCM team in some of the initial meetings. Like, I'm not ready for you yet, but here's what to be aware of. Here's what's forthcoming, right? On that standpoint.
It should be like analyze, plan, action, basically, if you want to look at 30, 60, 90 days that way too.
Exactly. Because you started to look at, again, the policy updates, how you're putting it here. You also have identify what changes, right? And the changes may be from systems. It might be saying prepare. We talk about data centers. Okay, it depends on how you're doing a data center. Are you outsourcing it? Do you need to resource? Because if you're going to outsource a data center, do you need to use an existing vendor? Do you need to bring a new vendor? Do you need to RFP it? That RFP happens. That's a 6-month journey minimum, if not a year or 2 years. Yes.
Yeah, we did talk about that. I think a little bit around data center activity. Like if you put everything out, right, then you need to restand. If you need to stand up a data center again, right, then you need to determine from the scope of the thing how large that data center needs to be, and then do all your planning around that as well. Otherwise, you could contract out to another data center to do this stuff for you too, and that's just, you have to do the financials on that to determine where you're going to get the best bang for the buck.
Right, and you might have to have we also talked about maybe as a short-term solution versus long-term solution.
That's true.
How you bring that across, right? But also your resource alignment and your governance, you're also helping determine collectively what this plan is. Again, we're just kind of whiteboarding and give a high-level view of this.
Yeah.
You might find out with your governance, okay, yeah, we can't do it because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It could be facility changes, it could be technology changes, it could be people going on holiday depending on which country you're in. I guess I'm used to doing this globally. It could be all sorts of different changes. It could be you might find out you can outsource some of what you have happening here with outsourcers. You might have outsourcer changes, right? And you're already moving from one outsourcer to the next. Okay, let's add more confusion into it, right? By the way, this does really happen. Yeah,
but this does happen though, so it's not like it's not. How would you say it is feasible, or it is reasonable?
Yeah, very much so. Because when you start thinking about this, it's figure out, okay, how do we move that? How do we move this needle forward? Because at this point, you're starting to plan execution, right?
Right.
This is also where the communication goes out. I'll say business owners.
Yeah, since people typically don't like change necessarily, it's better to inform them ahead of time. No surprises.
Well, they may already get caught off guard with this, right? This is where OCM comes into place, because OCM is organizational change management.
Right.
Their goal is to help that communication happen there, right? So at this point, maybe involve them a little bit in the 30 days. Again, more of a heads up. It's like, on their initial task may say, come up with a communication plan and I'll work with you. But I need to come to communication send out on everybody we're about to impact. Because if we go down, they need to be aware. Because the one thing you don't want to do is impact the business. You're already impacting the business, but you don't want to worry about the financials. Or if you do, you want everyone to be aware of it. It's like, by the way, I know everyone's a little stressed. We're gonna add some more to it. What the heck? Let's have some fun with it, right?
A good change management organization, a good change management plan also includes fallback in the event that your change didn't go over well. You need to be able to come back to the state where you were prior to implementing the change. And then after you figure out what went wrong, you take another shot at it, in another week, 2 weeks, and months, whatever.
Well, because what's also going to happen here is when you start going down this path, again, this is a big project. We're just talking about 30, 60, 90, right?
Yeah.
Is you're also starting to refine your requirements.
Yeah.
Right? Because you keep in mind, you have a system already online, it's in the cloud, and the reason why we're doing it is because cost justification. Well, that's great. But when you move to the cloud, we just kind of moved it across. So now we have to understand what the requirements are to make sure we're not going to be a detriment to the business as a whole. Because the last thing you want to do is kill the business because of IT.
Oh, no.
So you want to talk about a bad rep? Yeah.
A whole crew will get fired over that.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's worse than that. The company will close.
Yeah, you get into it with like a bad reputation. There's all kinds of like fallout and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We should do that as like a Halloween episode.
Well, I know Deanna and I did Friday the 13th, I think back in February. We did Friday the 13th episode.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah. Yeah, we were going pretty strong last week, which was also Friday the 13th. But we were having fun on trying to work through that scenario last week. That was the hospital last week I was talking about earlier.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah. And I don't know, anything we want to think about here, I'm thinking about the technology from the cloud, moving it over, because we're going to review this on a regular basis. We're going to have our governance meetings. But is there anything from a tech side that we need to further think about?
Well,
from an asset management perspective, because we live in the big picture, but what about us? Right?
Well, I'm not sure if the tool discussion had been had quite yet, right, around whether or not you've got the tools in place to monitor and manage. But that might be one of those things. Is the potential for any tool changes? We'll just make it something simple like that, and then we can extend into the 90-day plan the execution from there after there's some determination around that. Could a tool have prevented all of this? Monitoring through the portal, could that have prevented all of this? Some warning, some piece of the automation?
I'll just put tool evolution, right? And the tool evolution can maybe a change out. It may be able to further enhance what you have. You say, okay, we can't afford to change, which is typically the case. Don't feel alone in that. It might be saying, okay, here's some additional steps we need to put in place around the technology until we go that next step. That's what we're talking about, tool evolution. Because again, how do you further work with that and run with that? Let's see what updates coming from anybody on the screen. I'm trying to pay attention to that too. It's all good. If you saw the production here, it's crazy, but I'm having a blast. It's awesome.
It's all right. Today I can't really monitor the chats or whatever, but that's okay. We'll get through it.
No, this is awesome. We're having a blast.
I think we're making good progress because I think we're at 20 minutes, T-minus 20 minutes at the end, and now we're ready to kind of focus on our 90-day, our execution step. Yeah.
Exactly. So at this point, what comes to mind? Is there anything else we want to throw in the 60? Because we have people, the process, the technology, the data, and the governance. I look at the 5 different areas.
There's nothing I can think of off the top of my head, but who knows?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's dig into 90 then. Let's go for it.
Perfect.
So on the 90-day, where do we want to start? What comes to mind?
We want to start executing. So when you're looking at everything that's in that 60-day list, what are the things that stand out we want to get pushed on right away? I would say implementation of any data analysis and reporting, dashboarding would be one of the first things to execute on. Policy adjustment and policy placement would be like one of the next things. Execute on those things. Plus, I want to save a little time at the end to talk about just this week's example and what did you get as a viewer from us?
That's right. I'll say policy enhancements.
Yeah. I wish I had a bigger screen in front of me.
Don't worry, my scribbling is not helping. It's making it probably easier for you to read because it's smaller.
It's okay. We'll work through it.
It's the Mr. Bill scribble. We'll just leave it.
Yeah.
So you've got that. You also are going to have. I say the collaboration comes to mind for me on the 90 days, right? The collaboration teams actually come together, right?
Yeah. Do you want to list any change management modifications sort of in that that were identified? Because I know that that was there was emphasis on that. So I want to pay some homage to that. We could do a whole session on change management. We could do a whole week of sessions on change management.
Well, and that's a good point because when you start doing the change management, we've done the notifications. You do it for that communication. You have OCM involved. We start doing those enhancements. You're going to have to stage those in. Those don't just pop. Those don't just occur for you. You've got a little bit of shadow in there from my screens. But you're right. Change management, that's going to help that further refine to say, okay, what can we do, what cannot do? Because you're also going to be monitoring the dashboards, which is also going to show you the collaborative approach, right? And those that dashboard monitoring will include even data accuracy.
Yeah.
So from an update, if you guys, I'll put it this way: if you think you're not going to be busy with this whole process, I don't know what to think because you're going to be very busy, especially because they weren't monitoring it before. They weren't paying attention. You have updates happen occurring. You have conversations. You will be doing 10-hour days.
Don't be like that.
Yeah, and it's okay, right? Yeah.
At the bottom of that list at the 90 days, put in a spot there to say for postmortems, after action reports, and lessons learned, because for me, that's really key. Having gone through the pain of these kinds of exercises and not having written anything down or recorded after the fact, it's not a complete waste of time, but you'd see a lot less pain if you paid attention to that.
I think I got the spelling on that right. If I did, feel free to critique me. It's all good.
What are some of the other points we need to address in column 2 in the 60-day?
Well, I think we've had from the 60 days as well as our discovery, right? We have to also look at, say, okay, what type of devices are we going to prioritize? So back to the prioritization. We're going to start doing prioritization here.
Yes.
But it's also about prioritizing, say, what are we moving? What's going to be moving, right?
Yeah, because we got to start migration. That's another point right there. At your 90 days, after you've identified the scope of the systems that you're going to repatriate, now you need to act on those repatriation plans. You got to buy hardware, buy hardware. You got to configure and set that stuff up and get it in service. This is the time when you're going to be doing that. And you're going to be moving service from the cloud environment down to the repatriated on-prem environment.
Again, we're just getting set up, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's taken 90 days, and we can get this in 3 weeks. Don't even think about it. I mean, you can think about it, but your collaboration, we have a large organization, we have a lot of moving parts. People don't move that quick. It's like, well, we have to. It's like, you have to get it done right. And that's typically what most people have misaligned. They say, oh, we can do it in 3 weeks. Typically, it takes longer than you realize. And speaking from someone who used to plan and say, I can do it in 3 weeks, and it'll literally take me 6 weeks. That happens, right?
How fast can you get your servers shipped overseas today? Today, right now, under the current environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And where do they need to be? Which locations, the setup, how the coordination, how you work with the break fix team, the configuration team to make sure it's online, how you validate it, how you test it, etc.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, right? And there's nothing scripted. That's just what comes out of my mind, right? This is a master class, right?
Another thing
is like experience comes out.
Another thing that comes to mind, since we've got the communication there within the 60-day, is we want to do how you say check-ins. Like every 2 weeks, you want to do stat reports. You want to stand up a meeting and make sure that everybody's informed as to the progress or the burn down or whatever term you're going to use for this.
You may have to go down to 1 week, depending on how your priority, whether it's going on, but typically every 2 weeks is good for that.
Yeah.
You need to do more than 1 month. 1 month, oh, we can do it every month. You'd be surprised how much people are just going to say, oh, they have their day job into this, and
Well,
they totally forget about what they're doing here.
if some extremely critical systems are being migrated, this may be sooner than that too. You might need daily status reports on some of those. It depends on how critical the systems are, whether or not they are in fact life or death.
Right.
And so yeah, I know as a senior manager, I would insist on it. I'd want to know every minute, because if somebody is going to look down at me and ask a question, I want to be able to answer it, or I want to be able to say I can give you a turnaround on the answer within an hour.
There's also identifying your resources, right?
Oh yeah. For execution, yes.
I'll say and higher. Now, some people will debate that and say we don't need to hire till later. I get it. What I found, the example I have, was one time I was doing a huge software asset management initiative, and it was I was brought in after, I'll say, a very major name messed up an implementation. We're doing a software asset management project. I will not mention it. The company still exists today. Brought in and said, okay, how to fix it? I brought in the A team. I'm not talking about just the asset team. I'm talking about I brought in the experts in to make it happen. We worked for 3 months to get the system online. Flipped it on. I communicated when we first started, say, here's the resource. Told the customers, like, you need to hire this person now. No, we don't need him now, etc. And even the person, the consultant said, no, we don't need him. It's like, you need him now, because they need to understand how all this works. They didn't. I hired the guy the week before the project went live, before the system went live. A week before. Flipped it on. He had no training, no expertise, from no prep. He had, he wasn't even, his role, he was hired for something, he didn't even know what software asset management meant.
Yeah.
He knew software asset management. He was still trying to write out the letters for that, right? And when he started, he was the only guy. So I said, you're going to get at least 3 people for the work through the data. I hired 1 person. They tanked.
Mm-hmm. How much that cost them, you figure?
Well, exactly. Yeah. And after all that, and keep in mind with this, and by the way, this big company spent, oh my gosh, how much they spent for this customer?
Yeah, what was their investment, and then because they didn't do what you as the consultant told them to do, right?
Yeah, I say just the investment alone, we spent $30,000 a week for 12 weeks. Flipped on the switch. The cut, he didn't keep alignment. Right, hired the wrong resource to do it.
Right.
They fumbled.
Those are added costs, and unplanned costs. This is the kind of stuff that you're trying to avoid.
A month, right?
Yeah.
So say $500,000, just round numbers. I'm a little bit off, but yeah, it's still pretty close.
Well, Bill, about that, some companies have more dollars than cents. So.
Great point. Great point. But I'm bringing that up because when you identify and go ahead and hire it, the reason why I brought that up is when that person, whoever you hire, even if they have no experience, whatever it is, right? Because right now, trying to hire a software asset manager that's experienced is kind of difficult, right? Even though they're more prevalent than we realize, I think we have some AI-induced things there and some imbalances. But when they see how it works and they're part of the team, they have that collaboration, they get it. They understand it. They know when they need to roll up their sleeves and say, oh, okay, wait a minute, I need to step in this. You also understand when you hire that person, whether they're fit for your organization. And that's extremely critical, right?
You give them a little time.
So, yeah, exactly. So, again, there's a little bit extra. This is not a typical role, but this is our role. Our role is to be able to say how we put this forward. So we're doing resources in the case. I was thinking of people here, right?
Yeah. Was there anything else that stands out within the 60-day column that we've got to execute on in the 90?
I'm having way too much fun erasing things.
I know.
I see that.
I want to whiteboard.
Yeah, exactly. I got over my chair. I got over here. Oh, it's electronic. Yeah.
That's right.
So we got business tech owners. We've got. That was some of the requirements from your stakeholders, right? You're capturing requirements.
So if there are specific, let's say, stakeholder plans to engage or to execute on, then yeah, we'd want to have something over there in the 90-day.
Yeah.
And then there is one more thing I could think of in 90 days. It's anything we missed in 30 or 60.
Correct.
This is also something to be said around scope creep, right? And scope management, right? Like anything else, like any other project, along the way, somebody says, hey, what if we also did blah, blah, blah? And they want to try and force that in. A good project manager handles it the way that I was taught. And that is a great idea. And we will get on that as soon as we are finished with this project.
Well, that brings up a good point too, is up here. The project charter.
Yeah.
What's your road goal? You need to make sure that's in place because you're going to have to come back to that scope point Rob just brought up.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go back to that because you're going to go analysis paralysis. Everyone is going to. That's great. That's awesome. What are you really focused on? What's our real goal? And if it changes, fine, make a modification, make sure it's approved by the governance and sponsors. But it's also being able to put that in place.
And you got targets you want to hit, right? And you're not going to hit those targets with distractions and deviations. And scope creep, anything that's not within scope and critical along the critical path are those kinds of things. You don't have to say no to them, right? But you can say, not today.
Exactly. So as we come in the last 5 minutes, last 4 minutes, actually, this is great. We've actually covered a lot today, right? We've covered a significant amount. We have keep in mind, we're talking about an inherited environment playback book, right? Being able to say, okay, how do we look at that cloud environment moving back and forth? We talked the entire week about, okay, this is a business problem. Are we able to do what's being asked?
That's right.
Are we not? How can we adjust? And keep in mind, we've got high level points here, but this may also change. This may get pushed out. This may get pulled in. It's going to vary depending on the situation, right? You might be hiring an entire team saying, okay, we're going to hire somebody to bring this in place. So and that can be crazy all by itself, and part of those two. And but as you're further refining it, you're going to say, okay, what's possible? And that's the whole idea going through this exercise. The gears are moving at this point, right? We're ready to make that happen. That's what they're paying us to do, is say, okay, how can we be part of the team and move this forward? Because as you work with the team, they may have additional data points they want to add in here. Again, you have your project manager, possibly a program manager in place. They're going to be working, and I truthfully say do that because they're going to help with all those tasks. Let them do the task management part, right?
Yeah.
You're just giving high-level activities, right? And that's important to also distinguish, because if you're getting caught in the weeds, you're not going to be able to be objective.
Right.
You've got to figure out whether you're going to be objective or in the weeds. And sometimes you may have to roll up your sleeves, but you're doing that. And that's extremely critical. So today we talked about the 30 days, refining, reporting, refining whether it's the policy, change management, getting our discovery, make sure our stakeholders are there, refine that, right? Make sure we're aligned with where the organization wants to go. Start looking at project phases as we're going through this, right? We also said that's project charter to that place, right? In the 60 days, we start going through the reports, reviewing, identifying, and saying, okay, what else do we need to change? That's going to tie to your governance. Governance is going to be a big part of what you're doing here. Those the KPIs and metrics we covered the last couple of days, absolutely, we're going to be looking at those. That's also going to drive the policy updates, right? Organizational change management will be part of that. To say, oh wow, okay, yeah, you guys need to do that. You need to communicate. Make sure you make sure we start educating and communications out to technology owners. Make sure we're capturing requirements. Capture requirements maybe for each team member, right? Can't remember what the evolution was. I erased that a little bit. But you start a prioritization if you need to, and some status meetings. You do it on a regular basis. Now, in the 90 day, you also have your monitoring. We talked about that, so we're actually further refining that. Further refining policies, because as we're working through the change management enhancements happening, there's additional policy changes that also have to be in place. How can you do that one step at a time? OCM is going to help you with this, right? They're going to help to educate as far as get the communication out. You're also going to have your migration plan, right? So these are all happening in parallel. These are all parallel activities, right? Whether devices, software, configuration, cloud, you can keep adding your list in here, right? Whatever comes to mind. Identify who you need to hire, because changing resources, you're changing how you apply it. You're changing where your knowledge needs to be. Identifying those people and go ahead and hire them. The last one is, okay, adding items that we overlooked in the 30, 60, 90 days. You're going to have to do that throughout the entire duration. It's like, oops, I forgot that. Well, it's not just that. Now's the time to do it. That's all that means. Right. Just what, if it didn't come to mind before, that's great. And then you start looking at some of the postmortem while you're looking at that. That postmortem may get pushed out, but you have to look and say, I would even do this at 90 days. Say, okay, we've done 30 to 60. What's working well, what's not? It's easily overlooked. But we start saying, how well are we working, operating? Maybe there's something we need to tweak along the way to make ourselves more efficient.
That's right.
Right, provides that clarity. So as we wrap this up, Rob, because we're at the top of the hour. This is great. It's amazing how we go quick. Any final words that come to mind on this effort?
Yeah, in particular, right around this one, like consider, for instance, if you looked at all three sessions, what you actually got, how much value is being demonstrated to you about this, right? You've got the scenario that's in front of you. We've had a chance to examine that, and we brought it all the way to the point where we have effectively a 30, 60, 90-day timeline and plan for how you can then address this issue, right? What we do here is we discuss these scenarios exactly like this. And so consider watching, of course, into the future, reviewing what's been recorded already. And this is the stuff that we do. This is why we do this stuff. We solve problems for people, and we bring value to you, customers. We're consultants, and we've been doing this a long time because we love the work. We love solving the puzzles. Think about that. Tell your friends and tell your associates about what you've seen here, and spread the word.
Absolutely. I appreciate the little push there, Rob, because you're absolutely right. It's not about us being the experts, because you may say call us experts. I'm not. For me, I don't like calling myself an expert, because I'm still learning and growing like anybody.
Absolutely. And
that's the important part. That's what it's about, continuous improvement. Have I been around and seen a lot? You're talking about two individuals here who have 30 years apiece, right? Yeah. But it's not about us knowing all the answers. It's us keeping an open mind, saying, what else can we learn? How else can we grow? Who else can we talk to? How can we help other people jump on board and have that alignment in place, right? And that people aspect, and I found this out, actually, for all the years I've done it, I found this probably in the last 7 years. The real problem in asset management is not a technology problem. It's a people problem, right? It's a people. It's like, well, AI is going to fix that. AI is not going to fix that.
No.
AI is going to help spotlight it. That you still, that even more so, it's a people problem that we have to solve, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, we can't afford the resources. You can't afford not to, right? It's like, it's kind of like saying, I'll put it this way. If you have an organization, it's going to be, okay, so you have an entire IT department, but you're not going to have a CIO or CTO, or maybe they're intermixed. That's fine. That happens. Okay, remove them. Now, how are you going to operate?
Yeah.
Who's going to provide the thought leadership? You get that next step. That's what we're talking about. So I bring that in summary, not to bring us down, but actually help pump us up.
Yeah.
And that's important because as we go through these different scenarios, this is about providing knowledge you've never seen before. You might have seen a little bit of this conference. If you're ever at one of my conferences, you definitely would have seen this. Most people don't. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that at all. I've been doing this for 20 plus years, right? And I had, as far as speaking, public speaking, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I always done things like this, and they love the sessions. That's why it's standing room only. And being able to help do that is like helping inform others how they can operate within their own world. It's not about doing this exact scenario, but how you can move forward. So, in summary, we're wrapping up today's inherited environment with a cloud repatriation crisis for a manufacturing organization. We've had Monday, we talked about the triage, stabilization on Wednesday. Today, we talked about the 30, 60, 90-day plan. There's a lot more to occur on this if we're looking at the full plan. Absolutely. We're just doing the 30, 60, 90 to say, here's a little teaser, something to think about as you start a new job. Because this is where most people say, and this really happened. I'll give a scenario. I was talking to a customer a couple months ago, and he says, yeah, Bill, I hired a guy. This guy had all the certifications for the tool. He had to hire from the industry. He started, I hired him for 3 weeks. I fired him. I go, why is that? He said, he didn't know what to do. I go, do what? He says, I asked him, I said, so here's what I need you to do for some software compliance. He says, well, I don't know how to do that. He says, well, you have all these certifications. Yeah, but I don't know how to do that.
So
I'll send you the manual. He sent them the whole manual he had from the industry training he received. Sent them the customer manual. He says, he sent me the manual. I didn't read it. He sent me the manual. I fired him the next day.
He hired a great test taker.
Correct. So as you think about that, think about how you are applying what you do. Think about how you're able to advance and help your organization go that next step. That's what we're all about. That's what this is all about. So think about that. From that, enjoy your weekend. Have a great time. This is going to wrap it up for this one. This is session 3. And I look forward to seeing everybody on Monday for our next environment. We're going to do this one more time. This is the entire month of March. We're having fun like this.
Looking forward to it.
It does. We have a blast with this. Yeah, we're the crazy ones. Have fun with this. So look forward to it. I'll see everybody on Monday. See you then, guys and gals.
That's all.
Yep.